Hello everyone, welcome back to Kirklees Guitar School. In today's electric guitar lesson, I'm going to teach you how to play Zombie by the Cranberries. This was voted for by our Facebook group. If you want to get in touch with some other like-minded guitarists that are all learning, check out the link in the description, it's really good fun. So, there's a full free PDF that you can download for free. In this document, you'll find two versions of the song. So to begin with, I'm going to show you a couple of slides that are sort of a watered-down version as to what I'd teach a beginner. And then as the lesson progresses, we'll have a look at the solos and what they're actually doing on the record. I feel like this is a good study for anybody. It might be a little bit heavy for some, but I think it's a really good study. There's a lot of good stuff in here that you can sort of get light and shade out of essentially four chords. So what are these four chords? We've got an E minor, a C, a G, and then a D over F sharp. Now, if that looks pretty scary to you, you can just get away with playing a D chord, and that's how I'm going to tell the beginners to play this to start with. But if you're not, if you don't know already, a D over F sharp is a D chord, the triangle of a D, and then we take the thumb and put it over the top like that. Some people will opt to sort of fret it that way. It's never really worked out for me, so it's a D with a thumb hoiked over the top. If that sounds like too much hard work, just play a regular D chord for this tutorial. So to begin with, the whole song is based around this 4-bar progression. So we're going to do 4 strokes of E minor to C and G and D. Have a go at that for me while I'm waffling. So this progression here is whenever you're playing any of the quieter parts as a beginner, this is what I'd have a beginner doing over this, which is essentially strumming 4 beats to the bar. It's good for your timing, it's good for your chord change work, and any time there's basically no distortion, this is what I'd like you to play over that. So with 4 beats of E minor, C, G, and D. And this is the foundation for the full song, it's just what we choose to do with it. So that's the quiet bits for the beginners, and then when we get to the heavy bits, this is where the rest of the band come in. I'm going to be using a little bit of distortion today, but we'll talk about tones at the back end of the video, okay? So what we're going to do, I'm going to play these little 2-finger power chords. I did a lesson on Wild Thing by the Trogs last week, and this is a very kind of similar style of playing. So we've got E5, which is open E, 2nd fret, and we're just going to strike those 2 strings, and we're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I'm going to do all downstrokes for that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I'm then going to go to C5, which is the 3rd fret of the A string and 5th fret of the D string, following the same pattern. So we've got E to C. We then take that shape on fret 3 and fret 5 and move it up a string to give us G5. And then we get this. Now, you know how we had the D with the F sharp in the bass? This is like a power chord sort of continuation of that, okay? So what we're going to do... Now, for those of you in the academy, I'm actually going to do a lesson on these kind of chords where you play a power chord and then kick a leg out of bed to get this sound. Think Born to Be Wild. Or One Vision. Similar idea. So what we're going to do here is we're going to play this G5 chord, but if you're able to, I'd like you to take your index finger and I'd like you, instead of pressing fret number 3, I'd like you to press fret number 2 for me. Now that sounds really dissonant, doesn't it? But the band will be playing a D chord underneath you. Let me play all 4 bars. Now, to get that stretch, if you're struggling, drop your shoulder and take your thumb and move it sort of past the convex of the neck. You know where the neck starts to taper away? See if I can do it. bring your thumb down a little bit over the sort of convex of the neck. And what that's going to enable you to do is it'll enable you to push your wrist out like that. And whenever you see me play something like that, you'll see my whole arm drops. Forearm, elbow and everything drops. And that's just to get round the neck a little bit more to get that stretch. Now, it's going to be uncomfortable for most, but it should be an ooh, not an ow. Okay? So these are all the heavy bits we're going to play. One and two and three and four. And now I'm electing to use my index finger for the roots and then my pinky for the fifth of the chord. If you want to use your ring finger, great. But when we get to this F sharp, 5 5, which is easy for you to say, I would recommend using index and pinky for that. Because, I mean, I can do it. Doesn't mean I'm enjoying it. So, for the beginners, all of the quiet parts, I want you to just play the chords, 4 strokes to the bar. And then for the heavier parts, I'd like you to play the power chords in quavers, just with 2 fingers, and really kind of focusing on getting that F sharp 5 chord. Now, for the last bit for the beginners, you'll see that the full structure for the song's laid out, but this video would be hours and hours long if I took you through it bar by bar. So what I like to do is I like to give you sections to work on, and then if you go get the PDF for free from the first link in the description, you can follow along with this song at home. So finally, for the beginners, the last bit I want to talk about is the... After we've played the heavy bit twice, you're gonna play an E5 chord. Just the first chord of the chorus, and you're gonna let it just kind of peter off. And the band go from a really heavy rocking section to this sort of lead guitar part, and you've got plenty of time to let go and get ready to come up to the top of the neck. So what I'm going to do is we've got groups of 2 notes. So you've got a 7 and an 8 on the high E string, so that's a B and a C note. And then this funny looking 7 is a rest. Now what that means is I want you to play those 2 notes and then I want you to stop that 8th fret from ringing. Now you could probably hear the reverb on my amp a little bit, but we're not going... Can you see how there's 2 notes and a rest? So I want you to consciously let go of the string. Now we're not letting go completely, we're just letting go enough to stop to sort of make the string choke itself out. So you've got 7 8, 5 7, 3 5. Just pause the video and have a go at that first bar for me. Following that, we've got 2 3 2 on the high E string. So that's F sharp, G, and F sharp, and I'm using index, middle, index. And then we're going to play 2 notes on the 3rd fret of the B string. And you'll hear that the band resolves to an open B string there. What I've chosen to do instead is in the next bar here, we go back to those really chill. We go back to that. And that B note is in that E minor chord. Let me play the whole thing for you. Now, you notice I'm using a pedal today. There is 2 very, very, very distinctive sounds on this record. If you've got a pedal or a switcher for your amp, I'd really recommend getting a clean tone and an overdriven tone. We'll talk about tones at the back end of the video. So that takes you through the beginner's parts. There's essentially 3 parts on rotation that just go round and round and round the song. So at this point in the PDF, after on the 4th page, you should see this, which is the chords. Everything else that follows that is what I've sort of called the advanced version. And what I mean by that is it's what they're actually doing on the record. So let's say that you've gone through all of that now and you're like, yeah, that's pretty easy. I can kind of do most of that. I've really kind of made a point of picking the best parts out of the record, the solo, some sort of clean picked chord parts to make it a little bit more interesting and so everybody can take something from today's lesson. So we're going to actually go right back to the beginning, because rather than just playing 4 strokes to the bar with those chords, we've got a really interesting strumming pattern down here. So we've got a lot of quavers, a couple of semi-quavers, and then what I call the John Lennon trick, which is you essentially let go of all the strings. So let's break it up into chunks. I'd like us to just play 3 downstrokes to start with. Nothing to write home about there. 3 downstrokes. Down, down, down. Then we've got a semi-quaver on this 4th down, which is half the length of a crotchet. It's what we've been playing. So this is a quick note. And we're going to do a quick down and an up. So we've got 3 downs and then like a flick of a quick down and an up. 4 downs, 1 up. Down, 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 up. The rhythm would be down, 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 up. That takes you up to this point here. We're then going to put an upstroke and a downstroke back to back. So you see how we've got 2 upstrokes. Down, 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 up, down. Just tap that on the top of your guitar. Down, 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 up, down. That takes you to this part here. Try that on an E minor chord for me. Down, 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 up, down. If you've got that, we're going to do an up, a down, and an up on the back end. And on the very last stroke, I'm letting go of the chord and I'm just strumming the open strings. Now that's great because it's going to give you a little bit of time to get to your next chord, which is a C. And especially in the sort of like beginner to mid, sort of advanced beginner stages, nobody likes C, bless it. Spend a lot of time here getting that under your fingers. Those of you that are members of the Academy, I do a deep dive on this with the, you can see it in the playthrough, how I go through it all. So we're going to apply that to those 4 chords that we learned at the very beginning. The strumming pattern is identical for the whole thing. C, G, D. And you see how that D over F sharp comes back again. And you sort of going, well, I've got to play the 2nd fret on the low E, James. Why don't I play anything on the A string? Now that note shouldn't be in the chord, but in putting my thumb over the top of the neck, I'm actually stopping that A string from ringing out. So I'm striking the 6 strings of the guitar, but I'm only actually sounding 5 of those 6 strings. Okay. Now, if you look at that pattern, that's the hardest part of this song. The solo and everything's really easy in comparison to this. If you sort of don't feel challenged at the 4 strokes, but that strumming pattern is a little bit too challenging, you could put something like down, down, up, down, just to get you through it, and maybe you revisit it a little bit later, or you do some dedicated practice just on that strumming pattern outside of Zombie. Really push and pull these lessons, really make them work for you. But what we've just discussed there, which is that slide, where I'd just like you to play that in all the verses. It's highlighted in the PDF as verse 1 and verse 2. Now, sorry, no, that's not verse 1 and verse 2. We're going to talk about verse 1 in a second. Sorry, I'm getting my slides all muddled up. That's just for the intro, actually. So it's only 4 bars. It's only for 4 bars, and then you're coming away from it anyway. So the heavy part, we're going to essentially just mirror what we did in the beginner's version, but we're going to add an extra note underneath each one. So we've got three note bar chords. So you've got E5, C5, G5, And now that F sharp 5, we're going to keep these two fellas here on the 5th fret, and I'm just going to move that one back. But because I've got 2 fingers on the fretboard, it is a little bit of a challenge. Like that, see? All downstrokes. Now that's supposed to sound gross in the sort of spirit of the song and everything that it's about. It's a tactical songwriting decision that they've put that in there because they want it to sound a little bit gross. Okay, so for all of the choruses, that's what I'd like you to play. So just to be clear, the next part that we're going to look at is the verse. Now the verse I've split into 2 sections. The strumming pattern at the very beginning is just exclusively for those first 4 bars. If you have to fudge it a little bit to make it work, it's only 4 bars. Don't worry about it. This is where the verse starts. I misspoke earlier, and it's bothering me. Right. So we've done the heavy part. After the heavy part, we go into the. There's nothing new here. This is identical to the beginner version. Nothing to write home about. This is exactly the way that I taught it literally 7 minutes ago. Okay? Now into the verse. Now the verse and the pre-chorus are very similar, but they're both kind of... What I've done is I've taken 2 separate guitar parts and essentially cherry-picked my favourite bits of it, okay? So for the verses, we're going to do quavers. We're still going to do the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But what I'm going to do is for the first 6 strokes of the 8, I'm going to focus on the lower end of the chord. So predominantly that E5 chord, the E, the A and the D string. Now, it's nothing to write home about. If you accidentally catch that G, nobody's going to come lock you up. But I want you to definitely, for the first 6 strokes, first 3 beats of the bar, I want you to focus on the chunky end of the strings. And what that's going to enable you to do is on beat 4, and what we call the and of 4, we're going to pick the thinner strings, and it gives you this lovely kind of like light and shade. All downstrokes. And this repeats through the other chords. Now, I've opted to not put the F sharp in over here because it just sounded a little bit too out there, and I don't think it's what the guitar was doing on the record. I put this into Moises and picked it apart. But for verse 1 and verse 2, you're going to repeat this 4-bar phrase twice. And I don't know if you can hear, I've got a bit of chorus. Going full on 90s. Now, as we move into the pre-chorus, it's the same old thing since 1916. I think it's that lyric. Their tanks and their bombs and their guns and their bombs. It's just before the heavy bit and we go back into the mega distortion parts. I can hear a guitar sort of picking this lovely little melody in and amongst the chords. So I wanted to put that in. Okay, so we've got E minor, C, G and D still. But this D is D over F sharp, which we'll get here in a second. Let's focus on the E minor and the C to start with. It just sounds magic. It sounds lovely. So what am I doing? I'm just fretting an E minor chord, and I'm picking with a downstroke the E and the A strings. I'm then going to the opposite end of the guitar, and I'm picking the open B and the open G with upstrokes. So you see how it's a 4-note phrase. E string, A string, B string, G string. Down, down, up, up. We repeat that twice. I'm then going to change to a C, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the index finger off. So that's you could argue it's a C major 7 chord, but it's a C with the index finger taken off. And what it does is these two have 2 notes in common. Can you see how it's the open B and the open G? But we've got the bottom end of the C chord, and it gives you this lovely continuity. Just practice these 2 bars for me to start with. And occasionally, like I did there, you'll catch the wrong string, but as long as you're fretting all the right notes, it's not the end of the world. If you check out the playthrough on the Academy, there's a couple of little slips that I made in that, and I'm not mad about it, because to be honest, if you really analyse the record, it'd be the same. Now we break out that formation ever so slightly for the G chord, where we pick the lower, the root and the major third of the G chord, and then I'm actually going to pick the B and then the high E to get this root note at the top. And for that, I'm picking down, 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 up. And then as we get into the D chord, this should say D over F sharp, so it's a D with the top put in. I'm essentially going to pick with upstrokes from the B string. I'm then going to come back on myself to that G note, and then I've got up 3rd fret still from the chord on the B string, and then I'm going to let go. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's nothing that I don't think you can't handle. So for the pre-chorus, we'll do this twice. Following that, we're going to go into the... we go into a chorus. Now, looking at the actual transcription for the song, you've got the intro, chorus, which I've labelled heavy. You've got the riff, verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, then the little riff, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus. And that takes you through the first 2 pages of the advanced PDF. I think that will be page 5 and page 6 of the whole document. Then when we get onto the top here, we've got a solo section. Now what we're going to start here with, in fact, let me have a shuffle around with my slides. At the top of that next page, you'll see what's labelled as an instrumental section. Now, what we're essentially just, with us overdrive, we're just going to play, and you'll hear the bass going. You'll hear it doing all that stuff. And we're just going to let this sort of, let the band and the listener just like come down from that big kind of heavy chorus that we've just played. And this is a great songwriting tactic where these are called semi-brief rests. And what that means is for these 3 bars, I don't want you to play anything. And the main reason for that is we're just going to let everybody just calm down, okay? And then the band come back up, and we've got the guitar solo. Now, this here looks, what I'm going to show you, and on the sort of final page of the PDF, it looks like there's a lot going on, but the more you study it, the more you'll realise it's a lot of the same stuff, just going round and round and round. So we've got C and B, and I'm going to hammer on between those 2. So I'm using index and middle, and then I'm going to move down to the 5th position, index and ring. I'm going to hammer between 5 and 7. So we've got... Practice that for me. We're then going to repeat that in the 2nd bar. And after we've hammered on here, can you see how we're just going to pick that 7th fret a few more times? Da, 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 da. Here I'll pick it another 3 times. Let's try these 2 bars. He says. Bar 1. And then can you see in the 3rd bar and the 4th bar, it's more or less a mirror image of what we've just done. However, on the last bar, instead of playing the 7th fret of the high E, we go up to the 7th fret of the B string. Let me play you all of this. You see how I rolled the finger over there? Now, when we get into the next section, you'll see on the beginner's version, I've notated everything on the high E string, and that's just because I want it to be a little bit easier for the beginners. For the advanced guys, we're actually going to take our index finger for the vast majority of this, and we're going to be sliding it around, but we're actually going to bar 2 notes at the same time. Let me show you what I mean. So we've got, it's still the same idea, da, 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 But what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide, instead of hammering, I'm barring. So I'm pressing both strings down with one finger, and I slide between 7 and 8, and then 5 and 7. Now I'm opting to use my index finger for this because it's the only way I could keep track of it when I would try to record the playthrough for the Academy. If you find it easier using different fingers, by all means be my guest. And then we've got, instead of 3 7s on the back end of it, we've got just 2. For some reason, they only play 2 when they're playing these little dyads. And we repeat that a second time. And then we just play 7 and 8, 5 and 7. So you see how the first 3 bars, it's just a continuation of what we've done already, but we're just making it chunkier. And I feel like this was improvised. As you'll see later on, there's a few more slides like this. It's all the same idea, but sometimes we just just mix it up a little bit. And I think this is just simply because it's just the way it fell out of the guitarist's fingers on the day. At the end of this bar, you're gonna actually go the other way, which feels really unnatural. We're gonna slide from 7 down to 5. And then you're gonna hit that 5 again. And then we've got 7 and 10. This microphone here is in my way. I can't see my fretboard. Now what we're doing is we're gradually working his way. We're working his way up to the top end of the fretboard here. So we've got, let me play you these 4 bars and you'll be able to hear where it's going. And I know if you've watched any of my lessons, I tend to put vibrato on most things, but I'm really trying not to do it for the sake of this lesson because it's not what they're doing on the recording. So after we get up to the dusty end, that's these 2 bars. Slide between 10 and 12. Hit 12 again, and then back off to the 10. Da 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 da. You see how it's all variation on a theme? It's all very, very, very similar. And then we get into this we're getting towards the ending now where it sort of goes full circle back to 7 and 8. Pretty sure that's just the first slide. That's just a copy of what we've just done there, and then following that, you're going to hit a big fat E5 chord, and then the bass plays us out. So can you see what I mean? Though it sort of starts with this idea and then develops into dyads, goes further up the neck, comes back down, and then finishes on the root down here. All this can be seen and found on the very, very, very last page of the PDF. Make sure you go and get that. Guitar tones, a little bit of research that I did do for this recording was the general consensus is all the clean parts was a Fender Telecaster and a Gibson ES335 into a Vox amplifier, and all the heavy parts was a Les Paul into a Marshall because that's the sound. I got a better sound out of the Les Paul today. I've used predominantly the neck and a mixture of the neck and the bridge pickup. For my clean tone, I've got a Fender Deluxe amplifier with a bit of chorus. Not too much chorus, but just kind of leans into that sort of Nirvana thing a little bit. And then I've got a distortion pedal, not overdrive. I've got distortion, or is it even a fuzz? My mistake. It's a fuzz. I've got a fuzz pedal. You want a really raspy, kind of mean-sounding distortion, but you want to just kind of back the gain off. I always had it described as a wasp in a jar. If your tone sounds like a wasp in a jar, that's kind of what you want, but just to get it to that point and then just take it back sort of 1 degree, a couple of degrees to give it that sort of, you want that classic rock kind of sound, but it also wants to be nasal and quite sort of in your face. I'm here. So what did you think of that lesson? What do you think I should cover next? Let me know in the comments. I will see you next week for another electric guitar lesson. Thanks for watching.